The one that really stuck with me was that hijacking of a conversation.
We want so hard, so badly, to demonstrate that we're connected and we get it.
I can relate because I got a similar story.
I can one-up you on that just to show you that I understand.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it's about you and not the other person.
Yeah. Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble Rousers. I am Doc Shelley.
And I'm Carla. And we are wrapping up our segment that has been focused on listening.
Yes.
We've been practicing that a lot.
Lots of listening going on.
Throughout these segments, we've been addressing some of the finer points of listening, having started out by saying we never really had an opportunity to learn how to listen. You don't go to class. They don't teach classes on how to listen. We kind of make it up as we go.
Yeah.
And we uncovered a number of things that influence not just us as speakers who are doing so that we can be listened to, but as those who are consuming whatever it is that we might be saying.
Yeah. And I think as I reflected on some of the finer points that we made in our previous episodes around listening, the one that really stuck with me was that hijacking of a conversation. And that just really stuck out to me. And I had a couple of our listeners had made comments about that. So I think maybe we start with some little thoughts around that hijacking of a conversation and how that impacts us, our brand, and our ability to listen.
Yeah, so the short story on that was being able to help someone stay in their story when they're sharing something that it doesn't even matter if it's sad, it's happy, whatever, that we want so hard, so badly to demonstrate that we're connected and we get it, that especially when the story might be about something difficult, we have an interesting tactic.
It really is. And I think it's human nature to want to be connected. You want that person to understand, I can empathize with you. It's so much more powerful to lean into the conversation and say, ask a question or just say something that they've said and just carry on that conversation and let them stay in their moment than hijacking it and going, oh, I can relate because I got a similar story.
I can one-up you on that just to show you that I understand. And then all of a sudden it's about you and not the other person.
Yeah.
And we shared a couple of anecdotes around that. Anecdotes sounds like they were fake stories. No, true conversations that took place where with all the best intention, absolutely took people out of their story.
Yeah.
So it's an important thing to recognize that I don't know that anybody is trying to do anything but connect and demonstrate it. And yet we rob that person from the opportunity of actually being heard, being seen, being valued for that experience that they're sharing.
Exactly. And I do know some people that are one-uppers, that no matter what you say, they've got one better. They've got a funnier one. They have a more serious one. They have a better one. And they often lead with that. Oh, that's nothing. I have a funnier story. This is not a competition. And I love to hear people's stories, and I like to share my stories. Sometimes it's appropriate to just swap stories. You're sitting around the campfire. You're having a bonfire with your friends. Yeah, that's story time. We're just swapping stories. But in one-on-one conversations where someone has come to you because they have a need or desire to share something, completely an inappropriate time to be a story stealer or a story swapper.
Yeah, and again, trying to win. It's like you said, it's not a competition.
Yeah.
Another thing that came up as we were getting ready for wrapping this segment up was a model that Chris Argyris birthed. It feels like forever ago.
Long time ago.
Yes. And we'll call this the left hand, right hand model. And essentially, this really talks about there's this conversation that's going on out here, and there's the other one that's going on in an unspoken fashion in your head.
Inside your little brain.
Yes. And so in this model, using this as an exercise, one can take a conversation, put it down, say the left-hand column, and then make note of what you were really thinking, but not saying, in the other column. And wouldn't it be fascinating to have the conversations that are going on the inside, to have them come out? Because that's where the real juice is.
And I think sometimes it does come out. It may not come out verbally, but some of those inaudibles, it comes out in your tone of voice. It comes out by the look on your face. It comes out by your posture. You think about people who enter into a conversation because they want to win. And they are coming at you hard and fast, and they're maybe standing over you a little bit. In your head, you're probably responding to all of that, and that your right-hand column of what you're thinking is probably not coming out, just as theirs is not coming out verbally.
And yet that also comes out.
Exactly.
Non-verbally. When we hear all kinds of different quotes that say a whole bunch of communication is nonverbal, 80%, 90%, whatever, but it's a chunk. And so the intonations, the speed, the volume, the body posture, as you were describing that person who was coming across, that aggression, that like, I'm going to pounce.
Yeah.
I'm pouncing. Please feel like you're being pounced upon. Being aware, first, that that's going on. And second, what does it say to you? I think will probably bring out self-reflection in every segment, every episode, because it's so important. It's key that you think about what's really going on. What is it that I'm not saying? And why?
Yeah.
Why do I feel that I have to keep this inside? First off, become aware of those conversations, those thought bubbles in your own head. Okay, maybe don't think too hard.
I don't know. Don't think too hard about that. My thought bubbles are often riddled with lots of curse words. So, believe it or not, they don't always come out.
Well, yeah, I can appreciate that. Yes,
but it's funny because there's sometimes a cell phone rings or you see somebody walking down the hall and there's this immediate visceral reaction of, oh no, here comes whoever, or this person's calling. I want to talk to that person. Those are great opportunities to practice listening to those people that trigger you. But before I even go down that path, I want to stick to that left-hand, right-hand column for just a moment.
Okay.
Thinking about how you enter into a listening conversation is really important. And I think about that left-hand, right-hand column. Remember back in school, I don't know if you ever got called to the principal's office.
No.
You didn't? I'm officially firing you as a rabble rouser. I got called to the principal's office a few times. Not as many times as my brother did, but the whole class would go, ooh. And as I'm making that slow walk to the principal's office,
the walk of shame,
I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, what did I do now? What kind of trouble am I getting into? So there's a lot of chatter going on in my head, right? Think about, Carla, I have some feedback I want to give you. There is research that says about 85% of the population has the same response to that question, to that statement, as they would if someone was walking up on them in a dark alley at night and you're by yourself.
Wow.
So heartbeat has increased. You're probably a little sweaty. You're super nervous. That is not a great way to set up a conversation where I need you to listen to some feedback. So instead of saying, hey, I got some feedback for you, come with me.
And I'm really open now.
Yeah, so your left-hand, right-hand column is flaming up. I might say, hey, Carla, do you have 10 minutes? I'd like to have a conversation with you about something that's important to both of us.
A much different experience.
very different response. And sometimes it's simply a neurological response that we have. So we want to think about the word. I say it all the time, words change worlds. But think about the words that you're using when you enter into a conversation. Are you setting both of you and your conversation partner up for success? Or are you entering that conversation already at a disadvantage?
I think being aware of really the reason you want to have this conversation, and how important is it in having this conversation that the other person receives what it is that you have to say. I love that idea about the sense that somebody said, I got feedback for you, is like being snuck up upon in a dark alley.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any really wonderful, warm fuzzy that comes with that, in the sense that feedback like that that has been delivered in the past has rarely been positive.
Right. So you automatically have that visceral kind of response of, oh, geez, I don't want to hear this conversation. What can I do to avoid it?
That's right.
And then the other thing, when you think about entering into a conversation, are you going in to win? Are you going in to prove a point? Are you going in to compel other people to your side of the story or the situation? If you're going in with those reasons, you're probably not going to be really easy to listen to.
Mm.
So think about why you're having a conversation. And are you willing to be influenced? Are you willing to listen? You might have your own stuff to say. Then you also need to give courtesy to the other person to listen to them.
So it starts with, are you even easy to listen to?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we've figured out exactly why it is we want to have this, I want to have this conversation with you. Now it's about, how do I make the conversation one that actually invites you in?
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean to be easy to listen to? It means, I think, first that you care. We talked about this before. If you're 100% responsible for what you say and for what the other person hears, you can't do anything about what they do with what they hear. And we had that conversation in the last couple episodes ago. But what is the posture, complete posture, that you want to have so that it affects the ability of the other person to feel welcomed in, not forced in,
right,
to the conversation?
Right. And that they're willing to stay in conversation with you. Mm-hmm. So I know when people come at me and they think they're trying to win a conversation or trying to compel me to their point of view, all I'm doing is thinking of all the things that I'm going to say to combat that. I'm not actually listening, because I don't feel like you're in conversation with me. You're coming a directive at me and telling me, and then you're just going to turn around and walk away. That is not a conversation.
That's a lecture.
And I know that our society is very polarizing right now, and everything is either this or that. And there seems to be no gray matter of things, where two things can be true at the same time, of opposing or conflicting things can be true at the same time. So it's really interesting when we start to talk about, and we're not going to do that here, but you start to get into religion, politics, finance. I mean, all of those things, and two things can hold true.
Yes.
And people don't often recognize that. So they just want to argue for their point and their point only, and they're not willing to listen to anyone else's point of view. It's not a conversation I want to entertain.
No.
So it makes it really difficult to listen. So are you coming into a conversation with a healthy intent? Are you easy to listen to? And the only way you get better is to practice. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing is you can practice listening with anyone. You can do it at the grocery store checkout line if you don't use the self-checkout.
But even if you do, I've had conversations with the people at the self-checkout, because invariably I need something to be checked or whatever. Right? But even there.
Yeah. And you can do it with your neighbors. You can do it with your family, your friends. Obviously, you can do it at work if you have a job. But there's people all around you that you can practice listening to. And I would encourage you to really listen to those people where you know that they're a trigger for you and you don't like to listen to them. Because if you can start to listen to them, you can listen to anyone.
Interesting concept to be able to consciously go and invite conversation where you would have otherwise said, no, really, no, thank you. I'm not picking up on that phone call because that's the last person I want to talk to right now. Practice. And in that practicing, we're reflecting.
Absolutely.
And we're reflecting on, first off, why do I want to practice? Especially if you're making a choice to have the conversation with somebody that otherwise you wouldn't want to. But understanding, we've talked all along through this about triggers. Triggers for how I respond, triggers for how receptive I am, triggers for the reactions that I have, the left hand, right hand column. It gets down to the so what is learning through that self-reflection. And in this case, learning about not just being a good listener, but someone who others are willing to listen to.
Exactly.
Self-reflection.
Self-reflection's a beautiful thing, people.
I'm Carla.
I'm Doc Shelley. We'll see you next time.
So it starts with, are you even easy to listen to? Now it's about, how do I make the conversation one that actually invites you in